then we will take attendance. So if you want to call the roll, Karen.
Surely. Jen Rodriguez.
Here.
Kristen Besega.
Here.
Patrice McCarthy. Not yet. Margaret Gustafson.
Here.
Dr. Rowe. Thank you. Sarah Larford-Simons.
She said she had emailed us that she's not able to attend today.
And Dr. Ritchie.
She's working as an alternate, so she might not be able to attend.
Okay.
All right, and then we have some guests that are observing today. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started with approval of the agenda as it stands. So we'll be looking at approval of minutes and then action on presenting regulation, legislation, language, and then public participation and adjournment. Our meeting should take us to about 4:15, depending on the conversation and where we're going, but that is the typical stop for this particular group. I just, barring any adjustments to the agenda at this time, Kristen, go ahead.
I'd like to make an adjustment to move public participation to be the first item of business after approval of minutes.
All right. Anyone else?
This is Roe.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
This is Roe. I'll second that.
A second. Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right.
Which case I'll say it as a complete motion. I move to adopt the agenda as amended by moving public participation earlier.
And then Catherine Rowe seconds that. All right, all in favor, go ahead and call the roll for that.
Sure. Kristen Besega.
Aye.
Jen Rodriguez.
Yes.
Margaret Gustafson, excuse me.
Yes.
Dr. Rowe.
Yes.
Right.
Perfect. It passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So after the approval of minutes, if you've had a moment to take a look at the minutes prior to the meeting, is there any amendments or adjustments to the minutes from September 19th? All right. Kristen, did you have one?
Very small one. Under 402, must should be singular. So just must instead of musts. So I would move to adopt the minutes as amended.
All right. Seeing no other motions to adjust them, they are adopted with the amendment as is. So thank you. All right, so we're going to move into our regulations discussion, or I'm sorry, no, we're going to go into public participation. Do we have anybody signed up for public participation for this meeting, Karen?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's continue on and we will go into the regulations that were the next batch that were submitted, starting at the top there. And I will hand this off to Kristen to discuss as we move through them. And Karen, can you bring up the regulations attachment? Let me see.
Jen, so there's something in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that right now. So I think Karen had stated or shared that the webmaster, the person who's in charge of the web page for SDE, is out, and that might be the delay in posting that. Otherwise, it would have been posted, I'm sure, at least 5 days before or so. So that might be the challenge. But I will also say that we rarely have public participation as part of our ad hoc meetings as well. So thank you for that. Hopefully that won't happen, or I mean, it might happen in the future, but depending on, when people take their time. All right, so go ahead. Kristen, is it up? Yep, it's up.
Yep, it's up. All right. And thanks for agreeing to move the public participation first. I always feel bad in the other board meeting when it's like a 3-hour meeting and now they've waited till the end. So thank you for moving it to the beginning in case anyone was around. This one is a shorter batch because I was trying to look at all the regulations that were dealing with the changing grade spans. So as you know, Public Act had changed the grade spans so that your secondary subjects would get moved from 7-12 down to grades 4 to 12. And then elementary also had those expanded grade ranges. As we went through, I also identified that there was a few provisional educator certificates sections that aren't slated for sunset, that weren't in the Public Act as ones that were being repealed, but should be because we no longer offer provisional educator certificates. So 432 is one of those for provisional educator certificates that wasn't on the list to sunset, but should be removed because we're not offering this certificate anymore. Do I have any questions on this one? And in 2 weeks, you're going to see a much bigger list from me. This was just one that was easy to identify as we were going through like the grade spans. So Karen, if you could scroll up a little bit. There we go. So there were also a number of regulations that are set to sunset, but the concern is we want to have statements saying when elementary certs are required. If this were removed from regulation, the 434, then it would not clarify when it's required to have an elementary cert. So this regulation is really important so that you know which cert you need depending on the grade levels you teach. So 434, we're looking to reinstate as written and not allow it to sunset. This means that it does have to go through the regulatory process again, because since the Public Act said that it will be sunset, it then has to go through all the regulatory steps in order to stay on. There was also a number that were set to sunset that just needed to be brought up to conform to standards, to conform to the law, right? Regulations should match the laws and not exceed the authority thereof. So 435A and B, I think it makes sense to reinstate because it's saying that, okay, you need to have your elementary cert, and it specifies that you can't be the sole provider for art or health or music or physical education. In elementaries, this is really important because let's say Jen teaches, an elementary classroom teacher, that doesn't mean she's certified to be the elementary art teacher, right? Um, so that was 435A. 435B is where the grade range came into play. So looking to leave off all the things that are strike throughs and edit it to say pre-K through 6. The elementary grade range was expanded to go all the way from pre-K to 6, and so the regulations should match the law. Any questions for me so far? Right, moving right along. Karen, if you could scroll up a little bit. All right, so similarly to elementary, I felt that it was important that the middle grade certificate, when required language, should still be there. You should have in the regulations when is it required to have a middle grade certificate compared to the other certificates, even though the the grade range has changed. I see a hand. if
Julianne?
I just wanted to note, and I'll put this in the chat. I would remove part of this because it's no longer valid. So before this says, if I'm certified in middle school, I can teach my subject in grades 5 and 6. And if it's foreign language, I can teach 4, 5, and 6. And really, middle school is 4 to 8. So they can teach, regardless of the subject, 4, 5, and 6. So you'll see where I put in the chat, my suggestion is I think you can get rid of those parts and just it can simply say instruction in grades 4, 5, and 6. Because there is no differentiation now between world language and English or math.
makes sense to me. So when I move this at the end, I'll say to move as amended and reference this text.
Sounds good. That's what we did the last time as well.
Mhm. And I think that makes sense because if we're not treating world language as any different than any other subject, then this whole clause is not necessary. All right, on to secondary academic. Okay. So again, I felt it was important to include some sort of mention in the regs of when do you need a secondary academic cert versus a middle school or an elementary. So the when required, it just needed to be updated to conform to statute. So in order to be a secondary teacher teaching physics, for instance, it does need to be in that subject area. And it does include like the elementary and middle grades for 7 and 8. But I think the reason that's there is to say, with my physics certification, I can teach physics down to 4th grade, right? I can teach the area in which I'm certified. And similarly for 450, that's why it says valid for endorsed subjects, right? So I wanted to update the grade ranges, so 4 through 12. And then the departmentalized instruction part isn't necessary because where it says for endorsed subjects is already specifying that I can only teach physics with that cert.
Is there a question from the board? Okay, Julianne, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that in the language where it says an elementary or middle grade certificate endorsed for grades 7 and 8 allows them to teach in those grades, that is referencing in years past, we had a pre-K to 8 elementary certificate. And so it's saying that those people can therefore teach in 7 and 8. Likewise, we used to have a generalist middle school, which was all teach any subjects 4 to 8. So that's when it's referencing 7 and 8, that's what it's talking about.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or discussion around these? Okay.
All right, in which case I move to accept this packet of regulations with the as amended by the language from Julianne Frost in the chat, where it's crossing out grades 5 and 6, and when departmentalized instruction is offered in a foreign language in an elementary school, the endorsement is valid for such instruction in grades. Yeah.
And to move it to the board as part of the batches, correct?
And move it to board. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Rose?
Second.
All right, Dr. Rowe, thank you. Is there any discussion on this? All right, all in favor, go ahead and do the roll call for us, Karen. I can call off the names if you want to go ahead and just record the
I got it.
answers.
The mouse was not cooperating. Sorry. Jen Rodriguez,
Yes.
Christian Besega,
Yes.
Margaret Gustafson,
Yes.
Dr. Rowe.
Yes.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you. All right. I did want to ask Mr. Trombley, I see you on the message and you had put into the chat about the question about it not being on the webpage. Did you want to public participate and weren't given the opportunity to register?
No, I just didn't realize there wasn't even a meeting today.
Okay.
Because I've been trying to watch virtually. So I was Catherine and I happened to be emailing earlier and she said, "Oh, I'm running to a meeting." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know there was one today. It's not on the website." So she shared the agenda and I came in through the link. I didn't plan on talking.
Um, so, well, thank you for joining, and Athena as well in the meeting. And thank you, Dr. Rowe, for sharing that link. I'm hoping that this was just a lightning strike event where we won't have the situation where somebody might be out and our information isn't posted to the website for the public. But thank you for joining. We appreciate having you here. All right, so
Jen,
Krista?
Jen, just
Oh,
really, really quickly. I know that we're not having a public comment right this moment, but I just want to let you know that Dr. Trombley is the co-president of AACTE, and he is one of the 5 publics that we're here representing. He's the dean of Southern Connecticut State University. So just wanted to let everyone know and give
thank
him
you.
an introduction. He's my
That's
partner in crime.
I love that. That's a facility that my son is hoping to go to. So as a senior going into his freshman year of college next year. So that's awesome. Good to meet you. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of you next year. So thank you. I appreciate that. In terms of next steps, Kristen, I think you have some things in the docket that you wanted to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to suggest is that I have, because we had to agreed to give everything out a week in advance. I have now this very large backlog of the next meeting is going to have a ton of things. So I just figured we might as well get some of the discussions out of the way right now. That way, when I can come in like with drafts that already reflect some discussion. So one of the things I can do is I might be able to share my screen. Oh, I can. Let's do that. Because if I can have us take a look at a few of the upcoming ones that are set to sunset, like all the regulations surrounding durational shortage area permits, we definitely want to keep those. Those are very important to keeping educators in the classroom.
Just for the purpose of
There's some
record
things we want to
keeping,
look at it.
could I get a quick motion to just preview and have discussion around this? We wouldn't be taking action on them currently because we'd want to put them out right to the whole group.
Sure. So in which case I move that we take a few minutes to discuss a few of the regulations for the next agenda.
Can I get a second?
Pardon, Madam Chair, but
Sure.
you really should probably motion to go to informal discussion because this topic was not on the agenda. And you were really, by Robert's rules, are slated to adhere to what's already on the agenda, unless you make that motion.
Sure. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it as our kind of like our window in. So how about we just have a motion for open discussion on the topic? Go ahead, Kristen.
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second? Dr. Rowe?
I did not raise my hand to second. I'm going back to Robert's rules. Don't we need to agree to change the agenda then? If we're gonna include Karen, this
No.
is really directed. No,
I think you can make a motion to go to informal discussion as opposed to altering the agenda, because by altering the agenda, what you're saying is you're including this as a topic of discussion on the agenda, which you're not. You're just moving to go to informal discussion. So this is not going to be where you're actually taking any action. If it's on the agenda, that's meant that you're going to move forward with action.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
that was a learning moment for me. Thank you.
Oh, sure. No worries. Thank you.
Thank you for asking. It's a learning moment for us all. We're all fairly new to all of this, right? And as educators, we're always happy to learn something new as we go. So we have a motion on the table to go into informal discussion on the topic of the next batch. Do we have a second, Margaret?
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, I'll call the roll. Or Karen, do you want me to call the roll? Or would that be easier?
You can, sure.
Okay, perfect. Kristen?
Yes.
Jen, yes. Margaret?
Yes.
And Dr. Rowe? We can't hear you. I don't know if you're saying no or yes.
I said no, but I can give you an explanation.
Sure, like if we voted, but if you want to give the explanation already, the motion is carried, but go ahead.
I just think we all need a little bit of professional development and some history before we start discussing something. Otherwise, we're talking about something that we're all maybe not familiar with. So I really appreciate the pre-conversation, Kristen, but I wonder if we need to share that in advance so that we can take a look at it and discuss it. Not that I want to belabor anything. I just don't know. I don't know what we're going to be talking about. So I haven't done any research, haven't discussed with my colleagues. So hence my vote.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe. I think the nice thing about open discussion is that there isn't like an expectation of us taking a vote on any of the things. It's more kind of like an open thought exchange on maybe any topics that might come up. Seeing that we have until 4:15, we can certainly get at least advance notice of what the next meeting is going to entail. And then that would be shared for us to take action on and share with our organizations and that kind of thing to go into the next meeting. So what topics are you thinking will be on our next agenda, Kristen?
A whole bunch. Okay, so we've got a bilingual regulation, lots of things about provisional, the cert types in 410, interim educator, the temporary 90-day certificate. But I wanted to just go over DSAP because this one is set to sunset. So I'm going to share my screen if this works. Can everyone see this okay? I know it's really tiny.
I can see
Yes.
it. Okay.
Okay. So 422 looks like it's set to sunset, and it's, saying when can you reissue a durational shortage area permit. This is the permit that you would get if you have not fulfilled all the requirements of your EPP or assessment, but you're working in a public school. And originally, it says the durational shortage area shall be reissued no more than 2 times. But what I was looking at was that this could be larger. It doesn't have to be 2 times. And there's so many different reasons why people aren't getting their testing done or not getting their student teaching done. For instance, for reasons like I applied for my district durational shortage area permit in the summer, but then I found out I was pregnant and I decided not to go back to work. Well, now I can't have it reissued again, even though I was not either teaching or serving as an educator in the meantime. So I was looking at this and was thinking, shall be reissued no more than 4 times with 1 additional issuance for hardship. So hardship might be something that comes up where, that's really beyond the pale. What are people's thoughts on that?
Do you want me to just speak or do you want me to wait?
I was waiting for Jen to.
So open discussion, people can just speak as part of open discussion as
Okay,
long as we're
cool.
just not speaking over each other. So just kind of give each other grace so that we're not all talking at the same time, but anyone can kind of jump into the conversation for open discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So one thing is, it's a correction to the statement. The DSAP could be in place of that student teaching, right? So my students can work in the DSAP and that would fulfill the student teaching experience. So I just want to make that correction for everyone on the call, just so that there's no confusion. And then the other piece is, I wanted to ask Julianne, because she's on the call. Julianne, don't we already have where we can extend the DSAP?
It's not in regulation. So right now, what it says is you get one DSAP and you can have 2 renewals, and the renewals are contingent on that you're working your way along in the program, you've completed additional credits, made attempts on the testing, and so forth. So we, in the past, really never needed to go beyond a total of 3 DSAPs. In more recent years, we've run into more and more complications that have had us have to pursue. So if you look into under what's posted on the screen under B1, it does say there, let's see, it says you can defer based on, it talks about the hardship. Oh no, sorry, it's under 2. Deferral requested, and so that's kind of like our hardship. So we already have one hardship, but we've also had cases where testing wasn't available, or coursework wasn't, a class got canceled, or like there's different extenuating circumstances that have had us to have to push through and try to create additional hardship, so that we're finding more often we are having cases where someone might need a 4th or 5th DSAP. And so I think by saying you can potentially have 4, it will help us streamline the ability to pursue those DSAPs without having to have a lot of hardship backup, because if it goes to hardship, then it has to go to senior leadership to say, okay, is this sufficiently a hardship? And so we are doing that, but we're doing it in a more challenging way, because it doesn't, and so this is just to simplify it.
Thanks, Julianne. I think we all appreciate that.
I have a question about this in terms of the flow chart. I was trying to quickly find the pathways flow chart, because I can't remember if this is defined in that pathways, because we've been having so much conversation about alternative pathways / waivers, AKA whatever else. And I just feel like that's a really great conversation to have when we're saying there are all these different routes that someone can take and all these different opportunities to still support people.
I think it wasn't included in that document because it's not truly a path to certification. You could argue it's a path to getting the student teaching done, but in order to be a path to certification, like finishing your going through 3 years of a DSAP doesn't end with certification unless you get the rest of your testing and rest of your coursework done. So, I mean, I think it'd be good to bring up in the big meeting overall that like DSAP isn't an alternate pathway. It's not a pathway to initial cert, but it is an alternative for student teaching.
Yeah, I feel like it's an important recognition that there are more things at play here. So as we're having more conversation about accessibility and equity access and whatnot, I just feel like this might be another good thing to put on there.
It's a tool that correlates with another program. So if you're enrolled in the ARC program, you can get a DSAP while you're enrolled, but your pathway is still ARC. Or if you're enrolled in a traditional program, you can get a DSAP while you're enrolled, but the pathway is still institutional recommendation.
Right. I think the key there is you have to be affiliated with an educator preparation program of some either variety in order to have the DSAP. The certification officer works with the district in order to submit that documentation to CSDE.
We also use DSAP, so one of the potential pathways, unless it gets unless it's not returned, is 2 years of experience in an approved non-public school. Can waive an institutional recommendation. So someone might have been teaching at Kingswood Oxford for a number of years and they want to pursue certification. They're ultimately not going to be recommended by an institution, but we're going to take their experience. We're going to look at their transcripts and let's say, oh, turns out you need, 9 more credits in professional education. They can get a DSAP, and then the pathway is still experience plus transcript review. But that's like it's an authorization that allows them to serve while they're completing one of the various pathways.
Yes, and actually I'm going to pull that pathway up because that was another piece of regulations that's set to sunset. So I have all my notes for DSAP. Is there any other things people want to add to the discussion on DSAP before I go look at the experience pathway?
I'm going to throw one other thought out there. You may want to keep the requirements for the DSAP the same, or the board may want to consider, like right now, you have to have a bachelor's degree, you have to have enrolled in a program, unless it's a cross endorsement, you don't need a program, and you need to have 12 credits in the content area, in the endorsement area. Now, the board may want to say, as you're talking about, regulations and so forth, you may want to say, okay, do we want them to, is 9 the right number? Could they have 6? Could they have 9? Do we want 12? So you might want to reconsider the specifics of the requirements for a DSAP. Or you may say it's good to go, but that's just something you may want to think about. Do you want to consider, like right now, a DSAP, if someone is enrolled in an undergraduate program for certification, they can't get a DSAP because they don't have a bachelor's degree. So you might want to consider saying, oh, a DSAP, if someone is in their senior year of their undergraduate program for certification, is there a possibility that they could get a DSAP? So there might be ways you want to flex requirements for a DSAP. We definitely want a DSAP to remain as an option, but you may want to, as a group, talk about what other flexibilities do you want or not want.
Julianne, I've got a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any data around the impact of some of these changes? Do you know how many folks would be who have fallen out because they could not get a 4th DSAP?
I think we have tried to be as flexible as we can to look for those hardship extensions on the DSAPs to prevent that. We use it a lot with bilingual too, because let's say someone they're completing an elementary program and you have to do the elementary program before you can add the bilingual component. So it takes time to do a full elementary program and then a bilingual program. So, there's all kinds of like internal ways that we're trying to stay with it. We can't bend the law. The law is the law, but we look for as many flexibilities as we can that don't go outside the regulations. So we've been pretty successful so far. I think we could make it easier by just off the top saying you can have more than 2 DSAPs.
And we keep looking at under the lens of the student, but it might also meet the need of the partner district. If the partner district really needs that language person or that STEM person, they may be the ones that are going to request to extend the DSAP. I don't see that in the regs right now. And Kristen, if you wanted to meet offline and just kind of play with the whole idea about DSAP, I have some experience with that. We could work on that.
That would be great. So I've got that in my notes. So Julianne had started to bring up this teacher experience pathway, and that's one of the items set to sunset, actually for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is in the Public Act 2441, it lists 3 ways to get your initial certification. You complete an EPP, you go through an alternate route, or you come in through one of the either NASTEC interstate agreement or through one of the enhanced reciprocities, like you come in from another state. But because this pathway was not included in the law and the regulation that creates the pathway is going to sunset, the problem is this pathway accounts for something like 15% of all initial candidates. When we were looking at the data from Ajit, he was talking about how, it's on average 450 candidates per year. It's decreased a little bit over time because enhanced reciprocity means more people go through enhanced reciprocity and fewer people go through experienced transcript pathway. So I was looking to get this transcript pathway reinstated, but I figured we could talk about it just so that everyone gets a chance to look at this in advance. So what I was thinking for our next meeting is we plan to reinstate this pathway, which requires 20 months of teaching in your field, to whichever field you're teaching. Substitute teaching doesn't count towards the requirement, and your employing agent signs off. This would have to be if you worked in a public school, approved non-public school, on a public school in another state. The thing with this particular pathway is it's really good from people coming in who have worked in other states that we don't have one of those agreements for. So if we don't have enhanced reciprocity with the state, but you worked in that state for more than 20 months and you've completed all your other, you've completed all your testing, you've completed all your coursework. So it's really, I think in my legislative proposal, I called it teacher experience pathway, but it's really, you've taught, transcript experience pathway. It's that you've taught, you've done the coursework, you've done the assessment, you just didn't have a certification while you were doing so. So that's people who come in from other states, people who were teaching at college. Maybe you've been teaching at a college level and now you want to move to secondary academic, or you want to move into elementary. This is also going to be really helpful for our, friends that are coming in from charter schools where they don't require certification, or private schools where they've been teaching, they've done the coursework, they did the tests, but because they don't have a certificate yet, this is the pathway for them. So in addition to this regulation, expect to see next week a legislative proposal to include this as a fourth pathway in Public Act 2441. So kind of reinstating this pathway so that it doesn't just disappear and all of a sudden we have, hundreds of candidates that are not getting certified.
I just wanted to clarify 2 points. When we use the way it stands currently is if you are working in an approved non-public school and therefore certification wasn't required, we can accept the experience without a certificate. If you were working in a charter school, charter schools do require certification. So that would not be for them, but it's really our approved non-public schools, our diocesan schools, university educators, higher ed educators, and a big chunk is also our foreign credential people, because there is no interstate agreement with other countries, but there are people who've completed a program outside the country and they have experience teaching in Spain or wherever, and that's how we bring those folks in, is we have them document their experience serving under an appropriate credential in their country and then do the evaluation.
I have a question about the substitute teaching and how it doesn't count. Is there a differentiation made about long-term substitutes versus those that are, and I'm trying to remember the number of days before they have to flip and come back in and to get another set of days?
Current regulations do not differentiate between the two. It just says substitute teaching is not applicable. That may be something else that you want to consider when you're revisiting it. Maybe you might say, well, if it's a long-term sub and the person's been there for 2 complete years, I think the idea of not having a sub is they didn't want someone who's a daily sub. I'm hopping from position to position, over the 2 years, or I was a sub, for 6 months here and then 6 months there in a different district. So the idea is it's 20 months in one setting where you essentially are the teacher of record with the same group of students. I think if you wanted to establish that as another option, like only long-term sub, like you might say 10 months, it has to be 20 months of, service as the teacher of record with the same, teaching the same subject and grade level. You might do something like that that allows substitute teaching to come in and be accepted that way. That would be discussion for the board.
Yeah, that's great language. Thank you, Julianne. So I feel like we're hearing more and more about districts trying to get folks in to test the waters before they invest more in them. And people are trying to figure out if they want to stay in the field as well. I like that language that you had.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense to kind of differentiate, like a daily sub is not making the lesson plans. They're not necessarily giving the
Right.
instruction, but a long-term sub is expected to be able to make lesson plans and be able to give assessments and be able to grade papers. And like I've known long-term subs in positions for a whole year, right? When like someone leaves for a whole year. Um, and so I think that would be really interesting. So I wrote that down. So maybe that's something that we add into the regulations language.
Right. So Kristen, this is just going to blur it a little bit because at times the district doesn't have the DSEP doesn't meet the quota or doesn't meet the quota for the year DSEP. So you can't get the DSEP. So I wonder, do we play with the idea of a long-term sub and how long? Because if somebody goes out on maternity in October, it doesn't count as the full year so you can't stay at the DSEP, right? It has to be
Well,
for the academic year.
mhm. I think with this pathway, it's not actually talking about DSAP
I know
necessarily,
that.
though.
I know that. I'm just saying that if the same person wants the DSAP, but they cannot get the DSAP, sometimes districts cannot give the DSAP, may not be in a shortage area, or for whatever the reason, they don't have the capacity to give the DSAP, right? But they can use that same person as a long-term sub. So I think that
Mhm.
I think we need to unpack it a little bit, and I think some thoughtful conversation on what the difference between the DSAP and the difference between the long-term sub, what does it mean and how is it the same and how is it different? Because I have someone who was unable to stay in their DSAP because it was a maternity. So they weren't able to give her DSAP, had to be a long-term sub position. And I believe, and Julianne, correct me if I'm wrong, only the DSAP counts right now to fulfill the student teaching.
Correct. Again, so these are
No,
discussions you might want to have
right,
about the DSAP. Yeah. The
correct.
DSAP can only be issued if the position is expected to be a permanent position. So if you know the person's only going to be gone for, this one, if it's one full year, we'll usually do that. But if we're like, oh, they're going to leave in October and then they're only going to be there until May and then the teacher's coming back, then that's a situation where like, that's not really a DSAP situation. So that they would have a long-term sub. So I think that's a good conversation to have. And I think also taking into mind that a long-term sub technically is anyone who's 60 days or more. I don't necessarily think you want to count, 90 days as, again, you don't want 90, 90, 90. Like you want to have, what's a comfortable period of time that this person's been in the same district doing the same job for, like now it says it's 20 months. So you would need 20 consecutive months of teaching the same subject, grade level, that kind of thing. But again,
For
more
this, correct.
discussion.
Thanks, Julian.
I feel like more examples like that where we hear the real life struggle and the ways that districts are trying to kind of band-aid and work around. We should try to use some of those to figure out what's usable, like what actually works best for children, families, and staff versus like this is a thing that should not be a thing, right? Where can we lean back on EPPs or professional development or what have you? Like we just need to figure out a few more of those. So any case studies I think would be really good. And Jen, I know I've brought up before the idea of surveying and just finding out, from all the teaching staff, certified teachers, but then also districts and other stakeholders. What are their pain points? I feel like, kind of back to Chris's comment earlier about the public comment, there's still a lot of people who don't really know about the CERT board and the opportunity to come in and have public comment.
Yeah, I know that when we had discussed a survey on a different topic, it was about special ed with folks at SDE. I think that might be something that we could possibly coordinate out with the unions because they have access to all of those folks, and there's less of a concern, I think, about participating in a survey, especially if you're a new teacher, and that it might be more public or what have you for it. So we can certainly maybe talk to our affiliates and see if there's a way of surveying like those aspiring educators or new educators or something along the lines of there, and kind of come up with some ideas for a survey. So why don't we set up a meeting at another time and we can kind of like decide on like maybe some ideas of what we would want, present that to the organizations and see if they'd be willing to assist us with that.
I love that. More voice from more people.
Yeah.
Good opportunities for us.
We are at 4:06, so I just want to kind of give time for folks. I will also say that Patrice has been having a difficult time signing in. I believe Karen resent her the link, and there was an effort to resend the agenda, but there's some difficulty there. So we might have to meet with Patrice and see if we can kind of problem solve any technical difficulties, because we really want her voice as part of this ad hoc. She's quite knowledgeable as well, just like Dr. Rowe and the other members of this board. So we want to make sure that we can allow them or provide them with access that they need and any support that we can or know how to do. I'm definitely not a tech person, but happy to try to troubleshoot the challenges with her in that respect. So if she's watching this after the fact, our apologies, Patrice, and we're hoping that we can troubleshoot this for you and get it resolved so that you can participate more. Are there any other items that you wanted to go over, Kristen, for this open discussion?
We don't have to run till the end of class, so
Okay.
so I have a bunch of stuff like in the pipeline ready to get sent out next Friday. Is there anything that the members of the board want me to pay special attention to for the packet of stuff I send out next week?
No, I think because this is the regulations ad hoc, I know that you kind of mentioned some potential like language that might not be regulations. You can also submit that to Karen for just discussion or as a agenda item for the regular board if it isn't directly regs related. But if it is directly regs related, then it could be on this next one.
Yeah, the legislative proposal I have goes along with 412A. So it's like the transcript experience pathway, the legislative proposal, and the regulations together so that we get a chance to see both and they kind of operate in tandem.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. All right, Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Julianne to be here as representative from CSDE. I really appreciated the knowledge that you brought to the table. I think it was really helpful. So thank you. And thanks whoever's idea it was to invite her. So thank you as well.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I've been reading and interpreting and applying these regulations for 18 years. So I've read, I repeat them in my sleep half the time. So, and most people don't read the regs, but I do read the regs. So that's why I'm good or bad, I'm very familiar with them.
And we were here last time, like that was wonderful.
Yeah. And we have multiple lenses as part of the active board, which is wonderful. But it's also nice to have those people that are in the thick of it every single day, reviewing these kinds of things, advising us in our roles and the work that we do moving forward. So they have been wonderful in attending multiple meetings, other ad hocs as well that have, completed their tasks and moved on. So we do appreciate the time and effort that they put into it, and the dedication to ensuring that, we're getting it done, and we're getting it done right. So thank you. All right. If there is nothing else at this time, I would cater a motion to adjourn at 4:10.
Motion to adjourn, Rowe.
Thank you. All right. Second.
Second,
Kristen
Gustafson.
Perfect. All right. Any discussion? No. All right. Quick roll call. Kristen?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Margaret?
Yes.
And Dr. Rowe.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for your work and this important discussion. And I look forward to the additional things that we put forward. We have 2 batches now that will be presented to the board and then moved through as we continue this work. So thank you.
Thanks for your leadership, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.